back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and let's get into this 154 pound division. There's been a lot of activity recently in regards to the champions. They've been talking over Twitter. We've had Jarrett Hurd and Lara going back and forth with each other. Jermell Charlo on the back of that, he's made his point about what he thinks he wants to see going forward for 2018. So let's start with Jarrett Hurd and Lara. Those two have been going back and forth with each other. Like I said, it looks like the fight's going to be made, which is great. Of course, we want to see bigger fights in 2018 than we did in 2017. I think 2018 is going to be bigger than 2017, no doubt about it. Jarrett Hurd versus Lara, good fight, interesting fight in my opinion. Recently rewatched, should I say, a couple of their fights. So I watched again Hurd versus Trout over YouTube, and in my opinion, I don't think Hurd is probably the best boxer on the planet in terms of his skill sets, but his style is effective. Now, if you go and watch the fight against Austin Trout, the earlier rounds, Austin Trout boxed beautifully. He used the ring, used a lot of movement, displayed great footwork, used the ropes, got in and out, got his punches off, got in, and then would get out. Hurd would would land single shots and etc. and stuff like that, but he was pretty much chasing Trout around, trying to walk Trout down, and that's Hurd's style. Hurd kind of walks his opponents down and breaks their will, and he hits hard as well, and that's what happened against Trout. Trout's mistake was that he stopped. At times he would stop and exchange and trade with Hurd, and that played into Hurd's hands, and Hurd would be able to let off combinations, vicious hard punches to the body, to the head, which would have paid dividends towards the end of the fight, the latter rounds of the fight. Eventually, that's exactly what happened. He would, when Trout would stop and trade with him, that's when he would take his opportunity, and Hurd's punches would take their effect on Trout. And it eventually slowed him down. He gassed out, a little bit in my opinion, started losing power in his own punches. And Hurd is one of those guys that every punch he throws with a lot of power. Every punch is literally a power punch. So what eventually happened was, Hurd started taking over and started to put some, trapping Trout against the ropes, in the corner, even in the middle of the ring sometimes, and really teeing off some hard combinations. Eventually, he broke Trout down, and Trout's corner had to retire him. And that's what I mean by, Hurd isn't the most skillful boxer, but his style is effective. And he's one of those guys who's happy to take a punch, to land a punch of his own, which shows he's durable, his chin's durable, and that he can take a punch. I don't think he's the best at cutting off the ring, because in the earlier rounds he was kind of chasing Trout around the rings. Eventually it was only because of so much movement, and then obviously he was taking shots in return from Trout, that kind of slowed him down, and then he eventually gassed out. But his style's effective in that sense. So when I was looking at ERISLANDY Lara, I thought, well, who's Lara fought that kind of resembles Jarrett Hurd's style of boxing? And the only person I could think of that came to my head straight away was Angulo. We all remember that fight against Angulo. It was a tough fight for Lara. It wasn't easy. He got knocked down twice in that fight. And like I said, he had a similar style to Hurd, Angulo. Walks his opponents down, happy to take a punch, to land a punch, applies relentless pressure, keeps coming forward. When he does get his opportunities, he throws vicious body punches and combinations to head and body. He focused a lot on Lara's body. He landed some quality body shots against Lara. Knocked Lara down. One of those knockouts was when Lara was working off the ropes, trying to get off the ropes, and he walked into a left hook and hit the canvas. So he's a similar fighter to Jarrett Hurd in that sense. And it will be interesting, although Lara was probably winning most of the rounds, don't get me wrong, eventually that fight got stopped because, it didn't get stopped. Angulo, retired himself because of the hematoma that was growing on his left eye. It was massive. Even when the doctor was looking at it, you could see it growing and growing, and you know, it was seriously dangerous. It was a bad injury, and they had to, you know, rightfully had to stop the fight there. But you know, it makes you wonder, you know, what Hurd could probably do against Lara. You know, considering he shares a similar style to Angulo, and you know, he's bigger than Angulo, taller than Angulo. You know, his physical presence, you know, he's got a lot more there in that sense. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in that fight. Personally, I think Lara will probably win the fight. I think he's a very slick fighter, very smart, very intelligent. You know, Cuban fighter. You know, strong amateur background. I would probably give it to Lara. You know, but it still makes for an interesting fight, and you know, I'd definitely like to see it. Jermell Charlo obviously put a tweet out saying that, you know, well, you know, clearly Hurd and Lara have beefed up now, and while they're, while they're sorting out their fight and they're having their fight, I'll take on the gifted Sadam Ali. Clearly, you know, referring to Sadam Ali's victory over Miguel Cotto, an aging Miguel Cotto. Despite, you know, what people want to say in terms of, you know, Miguel Cotto was aging and he was at the end of his career, it was his last fight, etc. and stuff like that. Sadam Ali surprised all of us. You know, none of us thought Sadam Ali was going to win that fight. He boxed well, you know, used great movement, great footwork, great combinations, and thoroughly deserved his victory. Even Miguel Cotto gave him praise for the way he won the fight. You know, he didn't say anything negative or, try to discredit Sadam Ali's performance in any way. Do I think Sadam Ali beats Jermell Charlo? I don't think so, you know, because I go back and look at Sadam Ali like against his fights against Jesse Vargas, you know, where he lost that fight. You know, Vargas just beat him, you know, clearly. We know what happened in that fight. I think he got knocked down, was it 3 times in that fight? You know, it was so long ago, it was ages ago. I haven't rewatched that fight in a long time. But my point being is I think Charlo would probably, with his height, his range, his power and his boxing abilities, he would probably beat and knock out Sadam Ali, you know, maybe within 6 rounds, I reckon. Personally, that's just my opinion, you know. I'm not saying all you guys out there got to agree with me. But it makes for a great 2018 for the 154 division, in my opinion. I think, you know, definitely that's the way it needs to go. You get Hurd against Lara, and the winner of that faces the winner of Jermell Charlo and Sadam Ali. That's if Sadam Ali chooses to remain at 154. You know, I saw an article a few weeks ago where people are starting to question whether he's going to stay at 154 or he's going to go back to 147. But look, I definitely agree with Jermell Charlo. I definitely think, you know, Hurd and Lara should definitely fight. Charlo should take on Sadam Ali, you know, and the winner of Hurd Lara faces the winner of Charlo and Ali, and you know, hopefully we get an undisputed champion at 154 in 2018. You know, that's what, you know, if you follow my channel enough and watch enough of my videos, you'll know that I am a big believer in undisputed champions, that there should be one champion per division. You know, it does frustrate me when I see fighters go into a division, pick up one belt, beat a top name in that, a top name for that belt, and then move on to the next division without unifying. I want to see more of what we saw last year from Terence Crawford, which was, you know, unifying and becoming undisputed champion. You know, I honestly believe we should have one belt per division. That's it. But we're never going to get that with all the boxing commissions we have. So the best we can hope for are undisputed champions. And as a fighter, you should look to be undisputed and unify. You know, why would you go in a division, just pick up one belt and move on? I've never really understood that, in my opinion. I know money talks. I know what everyone's going to say. Money, it's a business and money talks. But as a fighter, you should aim to unify your division and become undisputed champion before moving on. And I'm a big believer in that, a big supporter of that. That's just my opinion as a boxing fan. I want to see in 2018, I want to see a hell of a lot more undisputed champions. And I think in 2018, we have a great opportunity here in the 154 division to see that undisputed champion. Let's hope it goes that way. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. That's my opinion on it. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, like, share and subscribe. And until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.